Hey guys, I'm Caitlin from Leave Me Alone Plants, and today we're going to talk about all the things you need to know when taking care of your variegated peperomia. Now, variegated peperomia is the name that I call it, and I think that's honestly, out of all the names, that it goes by one of the least common names. You might refer to this plant as a baby rubber tree, which if you feel the leaves on this guy, it completely makes sense. They honestly don't even look or feel real. And if you're of the scientific community, you might refer to this plant as the Peperomia Obtusifolia variegata. Now, this is the variegated variety, and honestly, I think, I see the variegated variety of this plant more than I actually see just like the standard normal variety. The standard variety is, if you can see it on here, basically the whole plant is going to be this darker green color, but this is a very common house plant that you'll see basically anywhere that you go. And honestly, I think the variegated variety of this is one of the most beautiful variegations of any plant out there, which, might be why it's so popular, but I get these in my shop all the time. However, this one in particular, when it came in, I'll hold it up one more time so you guys can see it, but it was just so speckled and marbled, and I just thought it was the most gorgeous plant I've ever seen, so it became part of my personal collection, which is something that happens pretty frequently here. But if you guys have one of these, the variegation can be pretty varied on these plants, from anything from kind of just some white splashes on there to something more like this guy that's a little more almost like a green tie-dye. So super cool. You can have a lot of different looks to the leaves. So as always, we're going to take a look at where these plants come from natively. Natively, they are found in South America. Now, they are a little more spread all over these days. They're pretty common in a lot of different places. But another thing to keep in mind with these plants is when they're grown in nature, they actually grow as epiphytes. So what that means is that they're not just going to grow in the soil on the ground, which, they probably could, but typically what's going to happen is wherever, the seedling or a leaf or whatever part of the plant starts to develop, when that plant lands somewhere, it's just going to grow right there, be it, on the side of a rock, on, the limb of a tree. It will grow in there. It doesn't have to be within a soil medium, which is pretty cool. And personally, I think all the epiphytes that I have, they're a lot easier to care for. So it's a feature that I personally kind of like. Now, in terms of when you're bringing this plant into your home and what care needs you have to give it, I grow this guy out of my patio, and the reason for doing that is because it is a light-loving plant. So while you're not going to want to stick them in bright direct light, they can, get burnt like many other plants. It is going to like a high lighting situation. So, if you're planning on growing it indoors, putting it close to a window or right in a windowsill is probably going to be your best option. Now, as for watering these guys, I find them super easy they almost tell you when they need to be watered. They'll kind of just start to droop over a little bit where it's almost noticeable that they need to water. Now, you probably can water them a little before it gets to that point. Honestly, I used to be a really heavy water because I caused root rot on so many of my plants. It actually has caused me to transition into being an underwaterer now. But if you're just somebody who's right on top of it, typically once the first couple inches of soil dry out, that's when you can go in and water this guy. So nothing crazy, just water it when it starts to get dry. In terms of humidity, if you look around, some people say, oh, these plants need high humidity. Some people say they don't require humidity. Personally, in my experience with this plant, and every time you pick up a plant from a store, every time that you bring it into your house, at the end of the day, they're all going to have slightly different care requirements just based on the plant, just like people. Some people, drink a ton of water, some people don't drink any water. Plants are the same way. They're all going to be a little different. But when we're looking at humidity, for me personally, like I said, I grow this outside in Arizona, which is traditionally known to be one of the driest places, and I really experienced no issues with it. So if you do have low humidity, don't be scared away from getting these plants. But if you want to bump it up and you think your plant's being affected from that low humidity, a great thing you can do is if you just want to put like a little saucer and fill it up with water, then that will increase the local humidity, or you can put it on a bubble tray, just something to have that water rise up, and it will increase the humidity around the plant. Now, unfortunately, these plants are considered toxic, so if you have, children or cats or dogs or some other little critter around the house, then this might not be the plant that you want to pick, or maybe, you know, just put it somewhere that is going to be out of reach. Your critters aren't getting into the thing. Now, in terms of, you know, the size of the pot that I have this in compared, you know, relatively to the size of the plant, this honestly is probably a bigger pot than I need to have it in, and I probably could have just left it in its planter pot. I really just did this for aesthetics. There's been a ton of pot sales around me recently, so if you happen to be watching this like the second that this video comes out, you want to stop by Big Lots is having a pot sale right now, as well as the store at home. So this one was from at home, super, you know, loving it. But yeah, so you can, if you're having these guys, just, you know, if you get them from the store and they're in a tiny little nursery pot, don't worry about it. They're totally fine in there. These guys don't need a ton of room to grow. Their root system, while, you know, they're pretty robust, they're not super big and long and extensive. So yep, definitely you can go with a small pot for these guys. In terms of what experience a grower should get this plant, I think it's great for beginners. Really, you know, if you're the type of person who hasn't had a ton of success with houseplants in the past, I think this one's a great one. You know, it's pretty easy, and especially if you like peperomia, but, you know, haven't had luck in the past. I know for me, like peperomia ripple, I tend to just not have super good luck with those, and some other peperomia can be a little difficult, but this guy for me is, you know, so easy, and ultimately, despite him being super common, it's still one of my favorite plants. That's all I have for today's video on this variegated peperomia. Now, if you had questions that I did not answer, down below, of course, shoot a comment and I will try to answer that question to the best of my ability. And while you're at it, don't forget to give this video a like and hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.